thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You did it. You all did it. You're the one that put in the work. You're the one that listened to me. You're the one that didn't come on stream and say, God, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. God, this guy's an old dinosaur. What does this have to do with hacking? God, you're not an IRC. You're a skid, whatever the case is, whatever that one guy that we had was. Thank you for putting in the work. Remember the All right, let's get into some resume hacking before we get started. Now, I think I said I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 6. Sorry. I have 6 resumes that we're going to review tonight. I'm going to look at these resumes from a couple different perspectives. We've got a lot of range of resumes that we're going to look at tonight, right? We've got folks who are students. We've got folks who are coming into this career field from not being in cybersecurity. We have folks who, we have one resume of somebody who is actually currently a C-level executive. And so we're going to look at a C-level executive resume. And so I think you're going to get a good sense of things that we're going to look at from a resume. Now, again, some things to keep in mind. Resumes are like pizzas. Okay. Hydrate. Apologize for that. I'm also participating in a little tipsy cyber myself tonight. Okay. Resumes are like pizzas. Okay. Everybody likes their resume differently, but nobody likes pineapple on their resume. Okay. Basically the bottom line is, I'm going to give you my opinion on resume, both from, the hiring manager's perspective when I look at resumes, things that I'm looking for, as well as how I put my resume together when I'm seeking new employment and things like that. What I tell you today and what you go back with, it would not surprise me if you change your resume, you submit it to a recruiter, and they tell you they hate it. They think this resume format is stupid. Go change it to look like XYZ. There's nothing I can do about that. I dare you to tell them, well, Neil F. and Bridges said that this is what a good resume looks like, and so I'm keeping my resume this way. That may or may not necessarily work for you. I can't guarantee it. Recruiters are weird like that. And this is why I tell you that, do your resume, and it'll work maybe 70 to 80% of the time. The rest of the time, you may just have to contend with some of these weird things that recruiters have to deal with. That's just the unfortunate nature of resumes. But I want you to understand what I'm looking for as a hiring manager, because even if a recruiter tells you to change your resume, at least then you should be able to say, well, Neil says I should include this type of information in my resume. The recruiter wants it to look like this. What's the right balance between those two? And that's something I want you all to take away with, okay? So, with kind of those ground rules out of the way, let's jump into to our first resume. Now, this is a resume of a student, okay? This was a resume of a student who had submitted their resume to me, okay? No real job experience, but they were in university, okay? So oftentimes a lot of you guys have asked me, how do you include Hack Me, your home lab stuff, your type of work on your resume? This is a resume that I think very much exemplifies what I think about when it comes to you all including that type of stuff on your resume. And so if you look at this resume, you can see on the left-hand side, they've got education, coursework, skills. And then on the right-hand side, they do their experience and their projects down here at the bottom. So the immediate thing when I look at a new student's resume, when I look at a student's resume like this, somebody who's in college, who's looking for their first cybersecurity role, this stuff here on the left-hand side is garbage, at least in the US, right? You're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, and you're not an accountant. So I could give a poop less as to whether your GPA is a 3.95 out of a 4. I'm glad you're proud. I could care less. Okay? We don't have those types of requirements in cybersecurity where, if you've got, oh, well, you've got a 3.6, therefore I'm not hiring you in a cybersecurity role. That just doesn't exist here. And it doesn't really speak, like, I don't know of a single hiring manager that looks at that and says, well, I'm not going to hire you because your GPA was so low. That conversation doesn't happen in cybersecurity. And so whenever I see a resume that has education on there where they're putting their GPA on there, I immediately tell them to pull that stuff off. I think that that is garbage data. It takes up useless space on a resume. And I absolutely throw that stuff out the window, hands down, every single time. I think at best, right, you include the university and the type of degree that you've got, and that's it, right? That's the only two things that you need. Even something like this coursework. So when you look at coursework and when you look at skills, to me, this is because somebody told you that you need to put a whole bunch of words on a resume to get past all these automated systems that people tell you that exist out there, to have your resume scanned. If you go look at Hacking Your Career Part 1 on YouTube, where I talked to Carla Redford, who spent 15 years in the recruiting industry, she debunks. She comes right out and says that those automated systems, they don't exist, especially for the good recruiters. The good recruiters don't use those automated systems for your resume. And so all this does is this just makes it look like you're just trying to do word soup on your resume. And especially here, this is nothing but word soup. I hate this. I hate this. When I see, and again, think about it. When I say I hate this, I look at this as a hiring manager. When I see this on the resume, I don't even look at it. I don't look at it. It literally might as well not even exist on the resume. And so if it doesn't exist on the resume, okay, if it doesn't exist on the resume, then it's taking up space for having me read something that does matter on your resume. Okay. And so I am not a fan of these things right here. As a matter of fact, I actively tell people to take that stuff out. Okay. Even if we were to dive deep into this, right? Your familiarity with Cisco iOS, what exactly does that mean? Right? What exactly is it that you want me to walk away from? I'm familiar with the gym. That doesn't mean I go every day, right? Really ask yourself, what's the value of the stuff that you're putting down here? And when you look at things like VLANs, STP, DHCP, DNS, FTP, SMTP, okay, what are you exactly you're telling me? You're not telling me that you know anything about those protocols. You're just smashing them on the resume because you think that that's helping you get through automated systems. Programming languages, Python, Java, C++. Okay, you've got this, but I don't have a GitHub repository that shows me the programming languages that you coded. You know why I don't have that? Because you actually haven't coded anything in those programming languages. You're just sticking them on your resume to get past the automated stuff. This stuff is very easy for hiring managers to see through, that you haven't actually got this experience, that you don't actually know it. You're just trying to defeat some mystical system that thinks that if it scans and sees Python, then it's going to pass you through to the hiring manager. And so in almost if you send me your resume, you've probably gotten this feedback from me that I tell you to rip this stuff out because it's garbage. It's garbage. Take it out of your resume. Okay? So that's first and foremost, right? Take this keyword stuff, take it out of your resume. So let's move over to experience. Let's talk about experience a little bit. If you truly want to have these keywords, and I'll take malware analysis just because it's right there. If you want to have these keywords show up in your resume, then put them in your experience. Okay? So in this individual's case, they were a threat research intern in Santa Clara, California. Okay, so if you've got malware analysis as a skill, then I would rather see in your experience, show me what you did to have this malware analysis skill. Okay, looking through this, the closest thing that you've got here is probably this one right here, right? Conducted threat assessments of anomalous traffic for behavior fingerprinting of the same and consequentially honed the platform by deploying necessary threat models. I like this bullet, right? But I think that if you wanted to, you could take malware analysis and you could say, conducted malware analysis on 15 pieces of ransomware that attempted to that were submitted to Awake Security and determined anomalous traffic behaviors and created fingerprinting signatures that ultimately went to improving 15 indicators of compromise in these systems. Guess what? You just got your keyword soup in some actual experience right there. You take away from this experience by doing these keyword soups that you've got here. And so my biggest encouragement is, if you're going to say that you have these skills, I mean, look, this one isn't as bad as some of the ones that I've seen. I've seen people put Windows 3.1 on their skills. If there's not a more obvious example of keyword soup to putting Windows 3.1 and Windows XP on your resume, I don't know what is. If it's that relevant, if you think it's that relevant to the job that you're applying for, then I want to see it in your experience and tell me why. What awesome thing have you done with Windows 3.1 or Windows XP that you think would make me realize that you have some skill in that area that would be useful? So case in point, you're a penetration tester. You're trying to get a job as a penetration tester. You may want people to see that you're familiar with old exploits as well as new exploits. And so you may say, familiar with exploiting Windows XP's #1 vulnerability, MS08067, utilizing the Metasploit framework in 67 penetration testing engagements. That's where you take that skill soup and you actually put it into experience. And that's my encouragement, is when you look at these experiences, don't do this. Steal these words instead and put them in your experience. Okay. Looks like we got a comment from chat from Smayax. Glad to see you again, Smayax. Interesting. In coding school, they highly recommend listing our tech stack. So maybe it translates to expertise in specific technologies like Splunk or something for this type of resume. I want to make something clear, Smayax. It's a fantastic comment. I'm not saying that you shouldn't list that you have experience in Python. I very much want you to, identify those tech stacks. It's how you do it that I have a fundamental problem with. I'm not a fan of this way of displaying that you have a skill set in a tech stack. This doesn't tell me what your experience with Cisco iOS is. This doesn't tell me what your experience with Python is. What I think the more valuable demonstration of what your experience in Python is to actually write a bullet in here that talks about what you're able to do with Python, right? And even in school, like to your point, I think when you talk about the higher ed stuff, you may be given an assignment, right? But talk about that assignment. During a Python assignment, we were asked to create X. Therefore, this was how I solved this problem in Python, and this was the experience I had. Remember, an organization is looking to understand what your comprehension is of that technology, whether it's Bash, whether it's Python, whether it's Cisco iOS, right? All of these things, they're looking for you to understand what that technology or what that stack is. This doesn't tell me what your experience in Python is. This, in your experience area, does tell me what your experience in Python is. And so my counter to that, Smayax, is I want you to pull it out of the word soup fashion, and I want you to think about adding content and context to this part of your resume. So hopefully that answers your question for you. If not, ask me a follow-up and I'll be happy to answer it. All right. Moving on from that. Outside of this, I like to see resumes from college individuals that have this type of experience. I know that not every college person gets this type of experience, If you don't have this type of experience, that's fine. This is where your try hack me, hack the box, range force, INE, hands-on stuff comes into play. And so, this is where in this particular resume, you can see that they use this projects nomiker. I'm a fan of this. I liked this about this individual's resume. I thought this was a fantastic call out. In this case, because they had experience, I thought it was actually a fantastic example where experience was listed first because they had it. But let's say that you're looking at your resume, you haven't gotten this intern experience, and so you're trying to find a way to put your experience kind of first and foremost to a hiring manager's, role. This is where I talk about pulling these projects, pulling these from the bottom part of your resume and actually putting them underneath your experience on your resume. And so when you look at these, you can kind of see that when we talk about home labs, when we talk about try hack me, when we talk about hack the box, when we talk about things like this is very much where I want you to include that stuff, especially if you're looking to highlight your skills and your kind of self-taught nature in this industry. So for those of you who want to put like, I'm working towards being a pen tester, I'm an aspiring pen tester, if I go back and pick on Chase a little bit, right? Or I'm trying to get my first pen testing role. This is where you're going to make up a lot of that proof in the pudding about how your hands-on skills, you're using those hands-on capabilities such as try hack me and hack the box. And so this could end up looking like, and I'll pick on Angry Amoeba here just because I thought his punchline is still really, really good, right? Premier banker, top 25% of hack the box, right? I would put in here, top 25%, of the industry leading hacking platform, try hack me or hack the box, right? And then put, whatever date you want to that's in there. And I would just give a blurb, 2 or 3 sentences that talk about, the rooms that you've completed, the skills that you've learned, right? The things that you've accomplished, in achieving that top 25%, so that you've got that data that's kind of first and foremost from an experience perspective that's listed on your resume. And here's the thing. If you have no cyber experience, whether you're a college person who's coming out of college, WGU, 17, 18 years old, whatever the case is, whether you're a cross trainee coming in from an outside career field, this is where you get to shine. That says, I'm doing what I can to fit into this career field by doing all of these other projects that show that I'm gaining cyber knowledge. And so that's why I very much want to pull this up here to the front of the resume and really highlight that cyber experience that you have in the industry. So very simple, very one page. Again, you notice that I don't comment about the length. I don't comment about, formatting or things like that, because those things I think are very elementary when it comes to a resume. I think that in this person's case, one page was actually very exceptional. I thought it was amazing that it fit on one page. Even with all the things that were being said, if this resume were handed to me and I had a job opening in my threat intel team, I would actually probably give this individual a job on my threat intel team. And so ultimately, this resume got a B plus from me at the end of the day, because me, I like to give grades. This resume got a B plus. The only thing that was missing, like I said, would be just this really does it in for me. So this is a B plus resume. With that, I'll kind of pause and see if there were any questions in chat specifically about this that I can answer. Okay. The question around resumes, it's expected that you hand in a paper resume, PDF, Word doc, etc. What are your thoughts on doing a digital portfolio in a website format as a resume? That's a fantastic question. This is why I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I think you can use LinkedIn as your digital resume. I think you will almost always have to have a Word, or PDF version of your resume, whether that's because of those automatic parsers that you get in the websites like Workday or whatever it is, where they take your Word document and then try to auto populate the fields, which we all hate because you submit your resume and then they ask you to fill in all the stuff anyway after the fact. So I think you're still going to have both. But I think in the essence of efficiency, this is why I'm a fan of using LinkedIn as your overall digital portfolio. And so things like your GitHub account or things like your YouTube, channel or your Twitch channel in my case, right? I think that's why you use LinkedIn and you follow those tips that we gave you for LinkedIn, to kind of use that kind of stuff, to do that. So I don't think you need to have your own domain, neilbridges.com or anything like that kind of talks about your digital portfolio. I think that's a little too much work, which is why I'm an advocate of LinkedIn. What's above the fold? So this one's oh, so when we talk about above the fold and below the fold, I apologize. I didn't realize that wasn't a common term. That's probably my military days, right? When you think about a newspaper, like an old school newspaper, right? It was folded in half, right? So you'd get an old school newspaper and you'd have the headline and then you'd have like the first page story and then you'd flip it for those of us who are old enough to remember old school newspapers. And then you'd open up the newspaper and then everything else would be below the fold. Well, the above the fold information is the stuff that's going to grab everybody's attention first, right? That's that first 6 to 8 seconds. And so when we talk about above the fold, right? Imagine that newspaper that's folded over and think about what that first page of stuff is that anybody sees. That's the above the fold information, right? That people are going to look at first. If you're asking me, I saw Claw Overdraw being a smart ass in chat asking what a newspaper was. You know what a newspaper is. um, it's a common misconception that they should only be one page. Just make sure the information is relevant and helpful, not filling space. 100% Therson. Absolutely. This is why you don't hear me talk about whether one page is right or 10 pages is right. I think a lot of recruiters will tell you, 2 to 3 to 4, depending on how much experience you've got. I did do a review of somebody who was a college kid who had a 3-page resume. And I was very much like, no, you do not have 3 pages worth of experience. You're just, to Therason's point, you're just filling space at that point in time. I can tell you that no hiring manager looks at a 3-page resume and goes, yeah, I'm going to hire that person just because they got a 3-page resume. That's that stuff that nobody ever says, right? That just doesn't happen. So, definitely to Therason's point, don't assume that one page is the right number and 3 pages is too many, right? Because that's not, there's no proven math to that in this field whatsoever. If you write out the experience as a bullet point, how long should the resume be? Again, there's no magic formula to how long, right? You want a resume to convey your qualifications for a job, and I think that's probably important to remind people, right? You are applying for a job. This is a job, or this is a resume from a threat research intern. If this person were to apply for a GRC role, this resume doesn't speak to their qualifications for a GRC role. And so, first and foremost, this idea that you can have one resume and apply to 100 jobs, I think you've got to get that out of your head first and foremost, right? This resume is made for a threat intel, maybe a threat researcher, maybe some malware analysis, maybe a SOC analyst one type of job, right? If they were going to apply for a GRC role, I would expect them to rewrite their resume to make it more GRC centric. And so when you get that in your head first, that you have to write a resume for the job that you're trying to apply for, then the length of the resume should be the length that explains the experience that you have to make you qualified to do that job, right? So if it takes you 4 pages because you've been doing GRC for 20 years, to talk about the 20 years of awesome stuff that you've done in GRC, then that's the right page count for a resume. I know I know that everybody oftentimes looks for like, well, Neil, that's not a number. I'm glad you told me that. I couldn't tell which was a number and which wasn't, but that's part of the problem with resumes is that, it's not a carbon copy resume and then you hand it out to 100 companies. It's not an accuracy by volume game. You have to take this resume, you have to take a job posting, like what we showed earlier from a GRC perspective, and you have to make sure that your resume highlights your qualifications for that job. Foolish says, what's your opinion on using something like Canva to make more visually appealing resumes? I've seen a few people do that, Foolish. I think that that's awesome. Personally, if some resume were to show up in front of me that was used on something like Canva, I'd love it. I think that's amazing because I'm tired of looking at boring resumes when they get submitted to me, right? One of the problems that I think we run into, right, is if you think about what I just explained from like a resume creation process, right? Where you find a job, right? Do I still have that tweet up? Yeah. Right. So we go here, we're looking at this GRC analyst role, and you create a custom Canva resume that matches your qualifications for this GRC role that I talked about earlier, right? Now you do that. You spend, God, I don't know how many hours it takes you in Canva to do that, but let's just assume for the sake of conversation, it takes you 4 hours to put your resume together for this GRC role. And you export it as PDF, and you've got this nice, pretty PDF that you want for the job. You click on this, right? You click on this apply now for this GRC privacy analyst role, and it takes you to Workday, and Workday wants you to upload a Word document. And then Workday is going to take that Word document and it's going to parse everything that you've got out of that Word document out. And it's going to try to pre-populate 15 different fields inside the resume. And it's going to be like, cool, are you ready to submit your resume? And all that work that you just put into Canva goes right out the window because of these systems that try to make it easier for corporate recruiters and hiring managers. And so I think the Canva resumes are awesome. But I also know that it's actually very, very hard for you to get those Canva resumes in front of hiring managers. So I say all that to say, be prepared depending on how your job search goes. Because while Canva's nice and it looks really, really good, it may end up being a wasted effort with some of these systems that are in place, to accept your resume. Ethereal Owls, as someone from the customer service industry and acquiring various soft skills throughout that career, where do I place it in a resume, side skills, main experience? Let's shelve that one, Ethereal Owls, for now. If I don't answer that when I go through some of the other resumes, because we've got 6 other resumes that we can go through, then ask it again. I'll give you permission to ask that question twice if I don't cover it later. But I think you'll see where we talk about some of those soft skills and some of the other resumes that we look at later. All right. So that one's done. So that's the student resume. I want to talk about the transitioning resume. The person who has spent years of their life in a completely different career field and is transiting into cybersecurity. And so I actually have a lot of these resumes down here for us to look at. So we're going to try to pound through a couple of examples of that. I want to start with what I think is actually a very good resume, of what not to do. A really good example of what not to do if you're transitioning into cybersecurity. So, man. The hydrate game is strong today, gentle people. All right. So, this individual, again, we're on a 1-page resume. I know that they have some professional experience up here. I'll get to this here in a little bit. But when you look down here at where they started, you can see that they started as a business analyst, private equity, and then they were a franchise partner for this chiropractic in Florida. Um, One of the things that immediately stuck out at me when I saw this resume was I didn't feel like there was enough emphasis on their soft skills. So again, ethereal to kind of your question, when you look at this previous set of experience, there's a lot of stuff here that I don't think is highlighted enough, right? So if we go down here, business analyst, private equity, there's only 4 bullets here that highlight some of those business skills, right? And if you get to it, if you think back to our LinkedIn hacking stuff that we did 2 weeks ago or last weekend, one of my biggest pet peeves, right, are just these individual bullets that read very much like job descriptions, right? Or job tasks that you had in an organization, right? So this individual did business valuations and negotiations for M&A, right? Franchise consulting, business investment process prospecting due diligence, risk management and business planning, right? And then, business analyst responsibilities. These are fantastic things that probably read really, really well if they were to go back to a law firm or even a private equity firm. But they spent 4 years here doing this type of business analyst work. And so when you look at this is where I think those soft skills, this is where I think those business skills really need to be highlighted on a resume. You were a business analyst for a private equity company, specifically a private equity law firm. How much was the portfolio you managed? How much was the portfolio of the entire law firm? How many deals, right? You said you did market research and analysis, right? How much was the value of the market research that you had done? You said you did marketing auditing, right? How many audit findings did you find? How much money did you save either the law firm or the companies that they were investing in as a private equity company? How much of that did you do? There is a ton of missed opportunity in these types of jobs to highlight skills that, quite frankly, all of you that are listening on chat right now that are doing Try Hack Me and Hack the Box and Range Force for SOC Analyst 1 and SOC Analyst 2, this is stuff you all don't have. This is stuff you all didn't go to school for. This is stuff that you guys probably don't even have on your radar as something that you're interested in if you're a pen tester or a SOC analyst, right? Because you're interested in getting your hands dirty on the tech stuff, right? But you have a ton. This individual has a ton of business stuff that I think isn't called out enough on this resume. And when you look through this resume, when you look through this job, and then you look through this job, it feels very much like, they're trying to say to themselves, well, it wasn't cyber related, so I want to downplay it so people don't think that I'm good at all this businessy stuff. But I can tell you right now that this businessy stuff, whether you like it or not, makes you a pretty good candidate for a managerial role, right? Let's go back over here to this GRC job, right, that we were looking at earlier. Experience evaluating a system or an organization against compliant regimens. Okay, let's go back over to our resume. Yep, market auditing, planning and strategy, risk management, and business planning. Don't you think that you could make a transition between what you were doing for this business company and that GRC role that we talked about, right? It doesn't have to be in cyber. When you go back and you read the job description, it doesn't say experience evaluating a cyber system. It doesn't say experience evaluating a cyber system or a cyber organization against the cyber compliance. It just talks about evaluating systems against compliance. So don't overthink the job description when you're looking at your resume, okay? And that's very much what I want you guys to take away from this is don't downplay these business skills simply because you think that they're not cyber related business skills. Okay. So that's kind of the big takeaway that I wanted to focus in on this resume is you're not really highlighting. Again, this is a franchise partner, and I know we picked on the business analyst, the private equity side. Um, this individual was a franchise partner responsible for general management and launch of multiple healthcare facilities in the South Florida market. Launched one of the top 3 fastest growing locations in the nation. Now, this is a good impact statement. I like this impact statement, right? It hits you right in the face. But was this a $1 million business or a $50 million business? And I think that that's the only thing that's missing here. And oh, hey, look, responsibilities include HIPAA compliance. Guess what? There's your compliance framework. You're measuring an organization against the compliance framework. You now have your entry level GRC role right there with that line right there. Okay. So this is an example. I think that there needs to be more impact here. I think there needs to be a dollar figure here. I think we need to understand like how big this business is right in the South Florida market. $1 million, $5 million, $50 million, $100 million, whatever the case is, right? How many people did you manage? When you talk about being a franchise owner, God, I love this resume because of the broad scope of business work. This resume, here's what I'll tell you folks right now. If you're listening to me chat, 4 years here at a private equity firm, doing M&A, 2 years here being a franchise partner owner, without looking at any of the cyber roles or anything up here, this is a manager at least in a GRC department at a cybersecurity organization. Governance, risk, and compliance. You have HIPAA right here. HIPAA compliance operations standards. You could go be a GRC manager for healthcare, life sciences, pharma, any of those verticals and industries. You could go be a GRC manager. I'd stake my reputation on that one just from this skill set right here without a single bit of cyber expertise. So that's below the fold, right? We haven't even got to looking at their sim experience here, yet. And so look at this. So again, let's look at this in comparison, right? So different set of comparison here. Got a lot of bullets down here on the business skill set, right? Between the law firm and this franchise partner. And they have two bullets in their cybersecurity role. So for the last 3 years, they've been a cybersecurity consultant for SIM, and they have 2 bullets. This again shows a lack of really emphasizing the skill sets that you've learned over the last 3 years as part of the experience gained from this employment. This resume could easily be 2 pages, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this resume being 2 pages here whatsoever, because I think you could expand upon these 2 bullets right here and really push this out to really talk about. I mean, you've got 2 technologies in here, McAfee and Alien Vault, that I think, like you say, assist with managing and deploying new SIM environments for McAfee and Alien Vault. That is such a wasted bullet. That is one bullet that could easily be 3 or 4 impactful bullets that I think are missed opportunities about this resume. So takeaways from this resume, right? I'm going to give this resume, this resume gets a C. This resume gets a C. I love this experience, but I don't think you pull out enough to highlight your business acumen, right? To Ethereal's point, right? I don't think you call out your soft side. I don't think you call out the expertise you've got on the soft side skills and why those matter or why those potentially could be valuable in a cybersecurity organization. And I think the other downgrade that I give this resume is here for the actual 3 years of cybersecurity work that you haven't pulled that cybersecurity work out to highlight that just in these 3 short years, you've made these amazing impacts to organizations in the 3 years that you've been working for, emerging networks. So gets a C. I'd like to see this content expanded out a little bit more. With that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions about anything I've covered on this resume, looking at it from a transitioning in, and I'll take a moment to hydrate before I go on to the next resume. Thanks, Ethereal. Hate to go back a bit, but as far as projects are concerned, can projects not affiliated with a job, such as Hack the Box or others, be placed on the resume if they fit the role? Um, I want your resume. I want your resume to convey that these projects show that you have a skill set, right? And so if we go back to these projects, if you're applying for a GRC role, I want these projects to help highlight the extra work that you've done to make you qualified for that role. If you're going to apply for a pen tester or an ethical hacker role, I want these projects to emphasize your capability as an ethical hacker, right? If you're applying for a networking role, I want these projects to emphasize your capabilities doing a networking role. And so I don't think projects, I think we had a question during the LinkedIn session about being a football and a wrestling coach appearing on your LinkedIn. I would only put those on your resume if you truly felt like the leadership that you exemplified doing those roles showed a unique amount of leadership that you felt the organization was asking of you when applying for that role. And so look at a project that you've got going on, Ethereal Owls, and if it's not affiliated with the job, ask yourself, can you pull out something unique about that experience, about that project that says, I know this isn't affiliated with the job, but I did something awesome here. And this is the type of awesome that I can bring to your organization. And that's what I would highlight about that project. Therson with, what's your opinion on anti-resumes? Would that get you noticed more? Anti-resumes, I don't think I'm familiar with that, Therson. Would love to. I'd have to actually look that one up a little bit and actually see what an anti-resume is. If you want to drop it in chat, Therson, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody talk about anti-resumes before. So Bugman says, question, if it wasn't asked when writing the bullets, do you need to keep in mind the software that is scanning them for keywords? Dude, Bugman, I hate that, right? I hate that. Don't even try to hack the software. Don't try to growth hack the software that's scanning for keywords. Don't. Just ignore it. Pretend it doesn't exist. It's fine. I go back to what Caitlin said, right? Caitlin said only 3% of the people who submit their resume to a job application get selected for the job, right? And so don't waste the time trying to overcomplicate these systems that are scanning for keywords. Just don't put the keywords in there. That is a waste of your time. And it's a better highlight of your skills to take these skills out and actually put them into your resume. So I did get word that anti-resumes were kind of like putting in, potentially some failures that you've had over the years. I don't necessarily think I'd put those in a resume. I've not seen that tactic taken before. I think that those are better conversations for getting you to the interview. Remember, the resume gets you to the table. And so you want the experience that's listed here and here. You want this experience to say, why should you bring me to the table for a conversation? And then you can use those, I have failed in these things in my life, as ways to help you when you get to the table. Aaron Dub said, should I highlight my Fed government work experience even though it's a non-IT role first over a recent cybersecurity research home lab experience? I'm afraid they would look at my career highlights and think I'm not what they're looking for. Absolutely. I mean, listen, look at your experience. Look at your experience. Everybody, I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 17 or 70. You have got some number of years on this earth. Okay? Real talk for a second. Real conversations with real people. You have some number of years on this earth where you have done some number of things. That skill set is valuable. That skill set is valuable, right? We're looking at a resume here of somebody who ran a law firm and was a franchise partner for a chiropractic who transitioned into cybersecurity. And I still want them to change their resume here to really highlight their awesome business non-IT skill set, because there is experience here that makes them qualified to run a cybersecurity organization. Let me say that again. This individual was an operations manager, a franchise partner, owned a business. Whether you like it or not, this individual is more qualified to run a SOC than a SOC analyst with 5 years of experience on a keyboard that can reverse engineer malware in their sleep with all the commands of IDA tied behind their back. This person is more qualified to run a SOC. Whether you like it or not, this non-IT skill set is more valuable in cyber than your ability to write 0 days. Whether you like it or not. And so absolutely, I want you to highlight all of your experiences that make you qualified to be the best damn cyber person that's out there. People process management will go further than your ability to write a 0 day in your cyber career. Hate to break it to y'all. People who have asked me, Neil, how do I make money in cybersecurity? Well, you could be a pen tester for the rest of your life. Your cap at pen testing is probably 175, which if that's where your goal is, then that's fine, right? In the US, your cap as a pen tester is probably 175. Average, right? I'm not saying that there aren't exceptions. Lord knows everybody's going to crawl out of the woodwork and be like, oh, but I'm making XXX and I'm not even making XXX. The average cap for a pen tester is 175. The average cap for a CISO is about 3 million. I know for a fact CISOs at Fortune 1000 companies that are less than $8 billion in revenue easily pull in 500,000 base. They didn't get there by writing 0 days. Say that again. They didn't get there by writing 0 days. They got there from business experience. This resume is a few tweaks away from being the next CISO of a Fortune 1000 company. So, is it bad that I have time gaps in my resume? Fantastic question, Miss Root. Hopefully you're not up too late in South Africa. Absolutely not. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. What I would highlight in those gaps is, what were you doing to stay relevant during those gaps? If you got laid off because of COVID and you've spent the last year doing try hack me and hack the box, just pulling something random out my tail, I think that that's a fantastic thing you can put on your resume. You can show how you're being relevant in the cybersecurity space. If you got laid off because of COVID and you spent the last year, starting a Twitch channel and speaking to the community, or attending conferences and speaking conferences, or some type of community outreach, those are all things that I would put on your resume. If you got laid off because of COVID and you sat around and waited for COVID to go away before you started looking for a job, that may be a little bit harder to explain. But I think if you've done something valuable with your time, I absolutely don't think there's a problem with gaps in your resume. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and press on and go to the next resume. These are good questions. Keep them coming. So, these 4 resumes that we've got down here at the bottom. These were community submitted within the last week. I will admit that I have not had a chance to thoroughly look through all of these, and so I'm going to rapid fire, kind of do some critiques. If you recognize your resume, make sure you're paying attention so that you can get these feedbacks, because these are probably some of the same feedbacks that I would give you in a longer drawn out email. Obviously, I've given you a lot in some of the other resumes. So having said that, let's look through this one really quick. So we've got 2 pages here. Okay, so not overly long. So if it's 2 pages, I'm thinking, okay, we should have some good amount of skill sets here. We've got IT analyst over 13 years of experience with electrical skills, skilled in areas of analytical troubleshooting, mature, focused, exemplary leadership, good interpersonal skills, excellent communications. Let's talk about headings like this really quick, right? These are always hit or miss, right? I don't think that there's a right or a wrong way to do these types of headings. I'm a fan. If you're going to do a heading like this, I would keep it short and sweet and talk about what your elevator pitch is, right? And I would almost look at these headings on a resume. When you look at these headings, if you were in an elevator with Tim Cook, or if you were in an elevator with think of a CEO at any company that you'd ever want to work for, right? And they were to be like, "Hey, I'm Tim Cook. What's your name? And if I were to offer you a job, what job would you like?" And this needs to be like the 2 or 3 sentences that you would tell that CEO, and you would want them to walk away and be like, "Yeah, I'd like to hire that guy because he has a set of skills that I need." Right? So think about this heading as being kind of that 2 or 3 elevator sentence that you would want to use in that elevator with that CEO. And that's what I would do. And when I look at that, I don't necessarily get that impression from looking at this, right? I don't walk away with an impression of like, I don't really know what I would use this individual for in my organization. And again, I go back to the guy that I brought in on my pen testing team. I've told this story several times, right? He was a desktop technician, and his elevator speech to me when he saw me in the hallway when I was leading the SOC at a Fortune 100, life sciences company was, "Hey Neil, I see that you're into ethical hacking. I do some of this stuff on my own." Obviously, he explained it out a little bit more than that. He said, "I would really like an opportunity to work for you because I have a huge passion for ethical hacking." And that was enough of an impression that he made on me for me to walk away with and be like, when I start an ethical hacking team, he's the first guy that I call. That's the elevator pitch that I want you to focus on in these types of headings on your resume when you look at those. Areas of expertise. Again, I look at these and I feel like these are very word soup. I'm not a fan of these. I actually I don't like anything here. This gets this gets strike throughs on my scorecard. We scroll down here a little bit. Professional experience. So just because I know who this person is, I'm going to speak directly to this person specifically, right? This job title does not do you justice, right? I've heard you talk to me specifically during some of our mentoring sessions about what it is that you do, and I don't think that this job title does you justice. And so let's talk for a second about job titles. And again, we're all cybersecurity folks, right? We all understand, what it means to walk fine lines and walk in gray areas. Really pick a job title that helps progress your career and also at the same time encompasses what it is that you do. Now, again, I'm not saying lie, and I would encourage you to go look at hacking your career part 2 on YouTube, where we talk to Steve Rice, and he says very explicitly, what you put on your resume is not going to be held against you in a court of law. It's to help a recruiter or to help an HR person or to help a hiring manager understand the skill sets that you bring to the table. And so I think that this job title could be possibly reworded in a way that helps the reader understand the skills that you bring to the table. Now, and again, that's not lying. There's nothing lying about that, right? Because I'll give you an example. When I started at Fidelity, in 2013 when I got out of the Air Force. My job title was I think it was like senior. It was a senior IT analyst, IT security analyst, something like that, right? It was a senior analyst. And the reason for that is because cybersecurity, even in 2013, was still so new that there weren't cyber job titles. Okay. And so when you look at my resume, I actually don't use that job title on my resume because that job title doesn't encompass what it was that I did. I led and built the red team at Fidelity. And so that's what I put on my resume is red team and penetration testing manager. Okay? Because that's what I did. There's nothing wrong with that because seeing senior IT security analyst doesn't encompass what I did as my experience at Fidelity. And so I think that you have to look at these and you have to say, what encompasses my experience at a company? Don't lie. I'm not asking you to lie. Let's make that explicitly clear. I'm not asking you to lie. But look yourself in the mirror and make sure that you can say that with a straight face and that you can believe it. And that everything here lines up with that. And when you sit across from those people at the table, that you can portray that image that you do have that experience and you do have that knowledge to perform the job that's being asked of you. That's what your CV is a testament that you can do the job that they're asking you to do. Let's look at resumes differently. Resumes prove on paper that you can do the job that's being advertised. And so this needs to reflect that you can do the job that's being advertised. And so that's kind of my stance on job titles. So if hopefully that made sense when we talked about this. So again, back to some of the bullets here, right? Assist test manager in managing day-to-day testing activities such as monitoring status report at the end of each day. I want to see more numbers, right? Let's, this is something that's very, very hard. And back to Ethereal's question when it comes to soft skills, right? How do we quantify our experiences, right? This just tells me that you assist the test manager. Hold on. So I'm going to stand behind you. I'm standing behind the test manager. I'm grabbing my notepad. I'm standing behind the test manager taking notes. Did the thing number 1. I'm assisting the test manager. That's how that reads. What I'm asking you to do is to talk about the awesome stuff that you did by assisting the test manager. How many tests did you assist with? Right? What was the impact of those testing activities? Right? When you tested the monitoring of a system, did you improve its efficacy? Did you reduce downtime? What was the impact of what it was that you did? What I want you all to think about when you write these bullets is I go back to my 3, and gosh, I wish Cyber Columbiana was on stream because she would absolutely love to hear me say this, right? 3 rules when writing a bullet. 3 rules. What? So what? Now what? Okay? What did you do? So what was the impact? And then what happened after that? Right? 3 easy things. And when you look at a lot of these bullets don't have that. You developing and managing. You've got kind of 2 tenses here. I'm not going to pick apart the English because Lord knows I'm not the best for English. Developing and managing testing for load performance and regression testing prior to applications released to production. This bullet could be so much more impactful. I look at this bullet and I'm like, oh, you get me excited and then you let me down. Okay? This bullet could be so much more impactful. These 5 bullets here, you are dangerously close to being a penetration tester with these bullets. Your entry level job into cybersecurity here, if I were you, is either in vulnerability management or risk assessment. Right when I look at this resume. So without harping too much on this one, I'd like to see more impactful bullets. Let's apply these more impactful bullets all the way down throughout everything else. I'm actually really okay with education down here at the bottom. Lots of good experience. This resume gets a C plus. This resume gets a C plus. Let's move on to the next one. So we're looking again back up here at this bullet up here, and I look at this from the perspective of my CEO. I'm in the elevator. I ask you who you are, what it is you want to do for the company. I like the use of voice of the customer here. This is pretty nice. I haven't seen that in a resume before. This actually isn't bad. This gets a thumbs up from an elevator speech perspective. I actually like this. This actually looks really good. So let's talk about this a little bit. Here, they use the elevator pitch here, and then they jump into core competencies, which I like. I actually like core competencies. I like core competencies more than skills. You had me here, you lost me here. I would drop this right here. But I actually like core competencies because this reads better, and this actually tells me what you're good at here, right? And especially I like the fact that you include training and mentoring here on this. I like the fact that you include customer service. So I actually like these core competencies. This also gets a plus for me, but then you get a thumbs down here for this. So you lose me a little bit in skills and technical knowledge down here, but I definitely like this right here. And this, when we talk about core competencies, again, I'm going to pick on Ethereal because they brought up the soft skills. This is, you can see when you look at these: customer service, cross-functional collaboration, training and mentoring, right? These are those soft skills. This is where you get to highlight some of those soft skills inside of your core competencies. So I like that very much. I also like a community support bullet. You get a plus for this. This is not required. Not required. And not every company likes it. Not every company values it. I like to see community supports when I look at resumes. And so, yeah, this very much, when I see this, I'm like, oh, like, I don't, at this point in time, I actually don't really care what it is you did. I see that you're participating in the community. You've been doing it for the last 10 years. I'm actually pretty happy with this, right? I'd probably still emphasize, like, duties range from interactions with attendees and working with invited guests. I'd probably still take the effort to put into talking about how awesome your work in this community effort is, especially if you've been doing it for 10 years. Like, what's the level of effort you've put into this? So I do fundamentally like this bullet. I would probably still say let's add some of those elements that we talked about with giving some metrics and giving some oomph to the scope of what it is. All right, so you lose me a little bit here, right? So professional experience, right? Look at this. You've been there for a year, and I have 3 really terrible bullets. I have no words. I'm gonna let that silence speak for itself. This has got to be more, right? This has got to be more with this. You know, I know nobody likes help desk, right? But I talk about this frequently, right? You have to take pride. You have to take pride in every job you have, right? Whether you like it or not, you have to show the experience you gained and the value you bring to an organization. Okay? So please, I know that nobody likes doing help desk work, but these bullets, this screams to me you don't care. I would actually stop reading. Like, you had me. You had me here. You had me here. You had me here. And if I saw this, I would drop the resume. That tells me everything I need to know about you. that because you hate the job, you put zero effort into emphasizing your successes on this resume. I'd throw this resume away. D minus. D minus on this resume. / disappoint. Good things to take away. I like this. I think this elevator pitch is good. I'm a huge fan of these core competencies on the resume. So I would say if you're looking for things to emulate, I would take these two pieces right here, emulate this. I like the community support, but that's probably the only three things that you get check marks for on this resume. You lose it here with this, and you can see it goes on throughout the rest of your resume. You got to put more effort into it, especially this is a 3-page resume. Nope. D minus on this resume. In terms of order on this, community. So here's the part when it comes to community support versus core competencies in terms of where it appears. I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer in terms of whether it happens here, whether it happens down here at the bottom after professional experience. I've always listed my community support first. I want people to know that I'm active in the community, as part of my role in cyber, right? I want, when I put community, and this is why when I called this out, I was a huge fan of this appearing up here, because when I look at this resume, to this point, I see a very well thought out objective statement. I see a very well thought out amount of core competencies, and I see, that you're active in the community. Like, to me, before I ever get to your experience, you could see how excited I was when I looked at this resume, and I was like, wow, I can't wait to read the rest of this resume. This looks like a person who knows what it is that they want. They have the right types of core competencies, and they're giving back to the community. Sweet. I can't wait to see what type of experience they've got. And then you get to the experience and it kind of drops off from there. So again, this gets back to that above the fold, below the fold. And so in this case, in this above the fold, I was very happy to see the community support first. And so I think as long as it's not obtrusive, as long as you're not talking about a whole page of your community support, I think it's okay to be before your professional experience. I think if you're talking about a page of community support, maybe you want to kind of put it down at the bottom just because it's a lot of stuff there. But I think in this case, it's the right mix. I actually don't have a problem with this. All right, let's move on to the next one. Actually, I want to do this one just in the essence of time, because this is one we've looked at. So just to kind of think about the personas that we've looked at, right? We've looked at a student who is graduating college and getting into cyber for their first job. We've looked at somebody who was, outside of cyber, doing business-related stuff, trying to get into cyber for their first role. We've looked at two people who were, again, outside of cyber, trying to come into cyber, at different parts of their career. Let's look at somebody who's a little bit more towards the top end, right? Let's look at an executive resume. Let's look at somebody who's, and the reason I know this is because I know this person, I know their resume. They put CXO in the top because they're one of the folks that we have on the stream who is kind of in that executive leadership portion. And so I want to, talk about the diversity that we have on the stream, everywhere from people who are trying to get into cyber all the way up to some of the senior leaders that we have. And so let's look at a senior leader resume. So right off the bat, right, I see down here 1 of 6. So they've got a 6-page resume. So yeah, quite a 1, 2, 3. Wow, they've got a 6-page resume. So when I look at this from like a 6-page resume perspective, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of experience here. Let's try to see what's relevant, and let's pull out some relevant experience, and let's see what we can do. I probably won't go through all 6 pages of this, but let's see what we can do here. So areas of expertise. I like the way this is worded. Okay, so this looks very similar, right? When we look at core competencies, right? I would call this an equivalent of core competencies. That's what they've got listed here as core competencies. Now, here's what I also like about this, right? they start with they start with their project management. They talk about their ability to manage teams, right? So this is the difference between somebody who's more executive in their role versus somebody who's more tactical. They understand that as an executive, and getting back to what I was saying earlier about CISO resumes and or CISO jobs and kind of those business leader jobs that we have inside of a cybersecurity organization, people aren't hiring them because they're an active member on these platforms. They're just not. Okay. They're hiring them because of their project management skills, because of their program management, because they can manage virtual teams, right? They're hiring them for these skills, right? More so than they're hiring them for their technical skills. So this is a resume that is bringing up, it's making sure that if the reader only picks these first few bullets, they see the things that are relevant for that executive level resume. The only complaint that I have about this, right? I don't like the fact that as an executive resume, you put program and product management first. I would pull up these here. I would pull these three up first, and I would actually put strategic planning first, right? If you're a C-level role, strategic planning is all you do, right? Whether it's a CIO, a CISO, a CTO, if you're a CXO, strategic planning is what you do. And so I would pull strategic planning up. I'd put corporate valuation, corporate finance up, M&As up. I'd pull project valuation, capital budgeting up, because those need to be core competencies for almost any C-level executive that's coming in there. Now, I think after these three, you could probably lump several of these together, especially right in here where you've got project management platforms and project management area of expertise. You could probably reduce the number of bullets. This is probably one of those times where I say you have too many bullets here that could easily be compressed into some singular impactful bullets in this space. I like the fact that they're a C-level objective, that a C-level operator that is trying to highlight their technical expertise. I will never poo-poo on this, and I think that this is awesome. Education. So again, while it's not important to me, you can see that they stay short and sweet with it. Look, here are all the degrees that they've got. Cool. They don't make a big deal about it. Boom, it's right there. Management certifications, PMP, look, right there at the top. Languages, right there at the top. International competitions. Oh, this is something we don't see very much. Microsoft's Magic Cup IT Challenge, ranked 32nd in 2009, world's 24th in 2008. So let's look at these dates, because I know that this frequently comes up, right? Is what's the diminishing returns of things like this over time, right? So it's 2020. Does anybody actually really care that I was 32nd in 2009? I don't necessarily see this as a diminishing returns problem. I would still include it, right? 2009, that's what, 11 years ago? I usually give a 10-year buffer for diminishing returns on most things, right? In cyber, if it's cyber and IT, if it's within the last 10 years, it's probably still relatively relevant. Okay. And so I like this. I don't want to see this go away. I'd probably say you might have 3 more years-ish or so that you could probably pull out of some of these before they start to hit some of those diminishing return points. Technical certifications. Don't have a problem with any of these. So my only complaint when I look at this resume as a whole, right? We hit the education, we hit the management certs, we hit the languages, which I think these are all important factors when it comes to a C-level executive. I look at this and I hit the technical certifications, and I wonder if this is a C-level person who wants to be known for their technical prowess, or is it a C-level person that wants to be known for their business strategy and their technology strategy, right? And so I would caution you, if you're in this position, to really evaluate yourself, right? We're on page 2 now, I think. Yeah, we're on page 2 now of the resume. right? We're on page 2 and we're still talking about your technical certifications. Do you want to be seen as a technical executive, or do you want to be seen as a business executive? And I don't necessarily know that there's a right or a wrong answer to this, right? I think that this is more about, you know, are you trying to appeal to an organization's business needs, or are you trying to appeal to an organization's technology needs? And so I think that that's a call you have to make when you put this resume together, and how you put some of this stuff on a resume. So what's the difference between the list of experience here and the word soup for the resume 4? Fantastic question. When you look at this as an area of expertise, right? This is managing cloud platforms, and they're giving examples of cloud platforms they managed. And so I would expect, as a hiring manager, right, if I were going to sit this person down and be like, tell me the time you managed an Amazon AWS. Tell me the time you managed Windows Azure. Have you ever done a hybrid cloud model, right, where you've had to migrate from on-prem to a hybrid cloud of Azure AD and Google Cloud? And I would expect to hear about projects that enabled that, because they told me that they've managed multiple cloud platforms. They just didn't say skills and list these skills out, right? They have told me that they're managing multiple cloud platforms. That's the difference, right? They have project management platform experience in these project management platforms. I'm going to say, okay, tell me about specifically your use of Jira. Tell me about your use of MS Project, right? What are those project management platforms that you've got, right? Okay, so you've got some skills down here. Again, we get a little bit word soupy down here, right? I think I'd probably pull this word soupy out. And again, it gets kind of back to, you start to get down here, you can see that they're trying to be technology centric. And I think that this goes back to my statement earlier about, are you trying to be a technology C-level executive, or are you trying to be a business focused C-level executive? But again, this does not pop out as word soupy to me, like it does when you go back over here to this resume, right? They're saying that as a student, they have skills in Metasploit. They have skills in Metasploit. They have skills in Kali Linux, which is inherently a penetration testing platform, which inherently has Nmap. Why didn't they include the 400 other tools that are inside of Kali? You know why? Because Kali shows up on a job rec, not SQL map, which is also included in Kali. This is word soup. This is, I've managed cloud platforms, and here are the cloud platforms that I've managed. That's the difference. Looking at their work experience. So this is, I like this. Promoted by. Without looking at this tells me that you, at some point in time, you were at A level, and something that you did during this time elevated you from one position to another, which means that you excelled at some level enough to get a more experienced job by being promoted into that. And so words like this carry a lot of weight to me in a resume, because I'm like, oh, okay, so what is it that you did before, and what made it awesome? Like, now I'm looking at this as a hiring manager going, I'm curious what you did that got you promoted. And I'm looking for that now when I read through this resume. So, gosh. And so we get down here into this again, and here we are again, right? Integration, gap analysis, and due diligence. This is a job responsibility, right? And I go back to resumes. This is work experience. Was your experience integration, gap analysis, and due diligence? Hey, Neil, what was your experience at Topgolf today? Golf balls and golf clubs. Okay, did you have fun? Hit ball down range. Was it, I mean, did you hit it good? Did you hit it bad? Track score on scoreboard. Think about experiences when you write this, right? Think about those experiences. That's when you read these resumes and you say things like integration, gap analysis, and due diligence. That's like me saying, Topgolf, hit ball, go far. Okay, you did it. You did what you were supposed to do by being in that role. I want you to put yourself in the hiring manager, and I want to know, how many of these did you do? How many of these did you do? How many problems did you find? How much money did you save the company? What was your experience that brought value, right? You had me at promoted, but you lost me by just telling me that you did your job. Really put yourself out there and think about the awesome things that you do, right? As part of the job. And here's another one down here. Create project estimates leveraging PMO best practices. If you're doing a project for me, am I not going to expect you to create a project estimate that leverages PMO best practices? So you're telling me that you did your job. Am I hiring you to do your job, or am I hiring you because you bring value to my organization? And so I encourage you to put yourself into the hiring manager's role when you write these resumes and talk about the value that you bring to the organization, right? I expect this is what you do on a day-to-day basis. That's probably what's expected of you. That tells me that I can expect you to do your job. I'm not hiring you because I expect you to do your job. I'm hiring you because you're awesome at your job, and I want you to come do awesome things for me. Okay? You're a C-level executive. You're applying for a C-level job. You should be able to tell me the grand scope of these projects that you've done, and about whether you've done them ahead of budget, ahead of time, with exceptional, execution details. You should be able to tell me that if you're applying for a C-level job. So again, like it. We get down here and it's like you tried to crush through a resume in one day and you're like, I'm just going to stick all my job responsibilities on here and call it a day. Okay? So really, I can't harp on this enough. When you look at these job responsibilities, bring business value, bring those values to the organization that come with the actual experiences that you had by doing them. So with that, we are coming up to the top of the hour. I want to ask Carmen if there's any questions that she wants to push for me to answer. Shouldn't a CTO CISO be a tech executive? What do you think? Not necessarily. I've worked for both. I've worked for CISOs who couldn't point out a firewall in a server room. And I've worked with CISOs who have been in my business every day of an incident in the middle of the incident while it's happening. Okay? And I can tell you that there's pros and cons to both, and that there are organizations that want one and don't want the other, and vice versa. And I can tell you from my experience, I would rather go work for a non-technical CISO than a technical CISO, because the further you are away from the tactical level execution, the less the tacticians want to hear your advice. I want to say that again. If you're a CISO or a CTO and you go down and you tell the firewall guy, or you go tell the SOC analyst how to do his job, you're not going to make any friends. And so that technology experience that you have as a CISO or a CTO helps you make sure that your teams aren't snowballing you in a conversation, and it helps decrease the gap when they're trying to explain to you some of the challenges that they have. But understanding how to use Metasploit in Try Hack Me, and then thinking that you're going to go down and talk to the penetration tester and ask him how he's doing his penetration test and give him advice on how to do it better, that's how you make enemies in an IT and a cybersecurity organization. And this is coming from a technical guy, a technical executive, and I would never, like, I do not talk to my analyst at all. I don't talk to my analyst. If they say, here's what happened, Neil, I'll ask them the questions to make sure that I feel satisfied that they're technically smart, so that I'm not getting snowballed by them, but I'm not going to tell them how to do their job. That's how you ruin your relationship with your tacticians, 100%. Neil, how do you suggest we should write about a job we do not like as much? How and what should I explain to make it relevant towards an InfoSec entry level job? So it's okay for you to have not liked the job, right? Lord knows I've had numerous jobs in my past that I didn't like. But I want you to think really, really hard. You know, you may not have liked it, but you have to prove that you provided value to that organization. Because the last thing you want is for somebody to look at your resume and be like, he clearly didn't care about that job. He clearly didn't perform his best. Like, you know, if you want to be perceived as mediocre, then please be perceived as mediocre. But if you always want to put the best foot forward, then your resume is the best opportunity for you to display that you put your best foot forward. And so I'd absolutely encourage you, even if it was a job you didn't like, dig deep inside of yourself and find out what it was that you brought value to the organization. Maybe you did the best that you could do, even though you know you hated it. Highlight that in some way, but try to dig deep and find that. Don't let your resume reflect like you want. Like, do you ever hear me complain about the garbage jobs that I've had in my past? Absolutely not. If you want me to tell you about a garbage job, I'll absolutely tell you. Here's the garbage job that I had. I actually said this to David this week during our interview. I don't know if he'll publish this on the video or not, but going from Germany in 2008 to back to the States, I had been told that because of everything I'd done, I was getting this kick-ass assignment at this intel unit, this awesome spec ops intel unit in Florida, right at Herbert Field. And I'd gotten all hyped up for it, right? I knew two of my friends who were already going to that unit, and I was like, this is going to be the coolest mission ever. Like, I'm so stoked for this mission. We're talking about, like, UAVs supporting CIA clandestine missions in Southeast Asia type cool shit, right? Swear jar. Whoops. Super stoked for it. Super crazy stoked. I landed on that base, and I immediately got sent to the warehouse to do asset inventory for the entire base. I was counting computers for a year. You know why you never hear me complain about it? Because I went in there and I kicked ass. I rocked that job. Every day I was there early. I was transforming their systems. I was making it more efficient. I brought in new technology that allowed us to scan barcodes, that allowed us to be more efficient at not only pulling that stuff in, but also getting it out the door. I built a brand new facility. I built a brand new $10 million facility that allowed me to triple my capacity. I changed our morale and ethics by allowing the squadron to give us an exception to policy, so we didn't have to wear uniforms, so we could wear polos and shorts because it was so hot in the warehouse in Florida. And I rocked that job for a year. And at the end of that year, the chief master sergeant, the highest ranked enlisted person in that squadron, came to me and said, Neil, you crushed that job. Everybody that we've put into that role complains daily on that job. You can have any assignment you want on the entire base. And I said, I want to go to cyber. Send me to cyber. And the next week, I was over in cyber doing the cyber mission. I hated that job, but this is the first time anybody in 10 plus years has ever heard that I hated that job, because I went in there and I crushed it for a year. Write about the jobs that you hate, write about how you crushed it, and you'll look like a superstar. With that, Associate Action's got one. For someone doing a logistics role with military experience, what cyber role would be most relatable? I think logistics and military. I think about things like transportation. I think about things like getting people out the door for deployments. Things like that. If that's what you're talking about, I think I would probably most likely equate those skills to. I'd probably say SOC manager. I probably think you could probably still do SOC manager. I mean, I think when I think logistics, right, I think business skills. I think coordinating multiple aspects. I think project management, program management. I think cyber delivery, right, delivering cyber skill sets, right. I would almost look at cyber program management, and I would try to pull in some program management skills, and I'd be like, I'll deliver your brand new SOC transformation. I'll deliver your brand new GRC program. I'll deliver your vulnerability management program. Those are the types I would look for. I'd look for project or program management roles inside of a cybersecurity organization. Yeah, we can go a few minutes over. That was a long story. I recognize that was probably a longer story. We can go over. How should I craft a resume as a current student who is 44 and have military experience, customer service jobs, management positions, but none of it directly applies to IT and cyber? I would take your military experience, similar to like what I just talked about, and I would put it in a way on your resume that highlights the skills that you bring to an organization. Whether it's, I mean, look, I think even infantry folks, right? If you're an E5 or an E6, right, an NCO doing infantry work, the massive amount of coordination that goes into mobilizing troop movements and executing op ords and providing not only the safety and security of your squad or your troop movement, and then providing those reports back to your leadership or your combatant commander, right? Those are all things that translate very much into management skills into IT and cyber, right? Remember, if you were an E5 or an E6 in the military, you did management work, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go take an entry-level job. You should be trying for a middle manager, right? You have middle management capabilities. Don't think you have to start over as entry level. I would apply for both. Maybe you want to do entry level because you want to stay tactical, but maybe you've got a lot of management skills because you were in the military. Apply for those middle manager roles. Middle management does not necessarily mean that you're the leadest of the lead of the lead of the tactical skills, especially if you're going to school for cyber. You've got customer service jobs, so you've done those soft skills. You should absolutely apply for management roles. I'm presuming that your student taking cybersecurity stuff. I think you should easily be looking at SOC managers, GRC managers, risk managers, IT audit managers, things like that. I absolutely think that's an easy transition for you. Will we get to see an A or an A plus resume? I tell you what, if anybody sends me, if everybody who's a subscriber sends me a resume and it's an A plus, I promise I'll bring it up on stream. Angry Amoeba, you don't get to ask a question. You won something today. We do have a giveaway. I do actually still have that giveaway for that EJPT. I totally forgot about that. So see, Carmen saved everybody. We are going to get to do the giveaway tonight. For somebody to do the EJPT exam. So don't anybody go anywhere for that. Does it make sense to put expected degrees on a resume? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. When it comes to expected degrees, is there, right? So what, like, let's say that this was Masters of Business Administration, simply putting, I actually don't put any dates on my resume whatsoever. Dates I don't think really matter in our career field. I think if you wanted to put dates on there, you could put spring 2020 right on there. I wouldn't put expected on there. I actually don't put any dates for any of my stuff on my resume whatsoever. I've never had an issue with it. I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, honestly. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start the raffle. So listen, let's make sure we talk about the rules here for this raffle, and I want to refresh everybody's memory on this. Um, First and foremost, the winner has to be a subscriber and active in the community. Okay, that is a request of the person that has volunteered to give up this exam voucher attempt. That's their request. Right? That's on them. Look, I see people spamming raffle and I haven't even hit it yet. Gosh, I haven't even hit it yet. All right, I guess I'll start it since that's what everybody really cares about. There we go. It started inside of chat. Wait for Streamlabs. Where's Streamlabs? Come on. Start giveaway. There it goes. Okay. All right. So gosh, there we go. There goes everybody. Okay. So everybody can hit raffle all day long. You guys have fun hitting that raffle. The winner has to be an active subscriber, and it has to be somebody who is active in the community, okay? That is a request of the person that has volunteered to pay for this exam voucher and give it to me to give away. And that person shall remain nameless. That was their ask, and I'm going to honor that ask. But they very much wanted to see an active person in this community have an opportunity to take the EJPT exam. So if you don't know what the EJPT exam is, very frequently in this stream, I talk about people, who want to get a pen testing cert and want to get into, kind of some of that free training to go to INE and sign up for the starter pass. And when you go to sign up for INE and that starter pass, you're essentially taking the PTS, which is the pen testing student course. Okay. That pen testing student course doesn't come with an exam attempt. You have to pay extra for that exam attempt, and that exam is the EJPT, or the Junior Penetration Testing Certification. So what this is we're raffling off to a current subscriber a free certification attempt for the EJPT cert. And again, this is a community giveaway. This is somebody who had asked that this goes to a current subscriber, and so this will go to a current subscriber. If you are listening to me right now, and you are a current subscriber, you can hit that exclamation point raffle, and you will have a chance at getting this EJPT attempt. And I'm just scrolling through chat, making sure that the giveaway mechanism is working well, and it does look like the giveaway mechanism is working well. With that, I'll let that run for a little while longer while Carmen pushes the next question on screen. If you're wondering what a paid subscriber is, inside of Twitch, you've got a little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. That indicates that you're kind of committed to the stream to a certain level. And again, I don't ask for subs. I'll never ask for subs. The folks who have voluntarily given sub subscriptions, that's kind of been their way of showing the support for the stream. And so in talking with this individual, that has been the best way that we kind of thought to limit the scope of the giveaway, is for people who have chosen to voluntarily pay to support the stream. As I remind everybody, we don't ask for money on the stream. We don't ask for subscribers on the stream. We don't do this for money. We do this, just out of everybody, on the stream. And so in working it out with this individual, we decided to narrow it down to people who have paid for a subscription, as kind of being that display of support for the community. And they can only get one entry. That's correct. Okay, Neil, I went into my first job, IT help desk, saying I have no experience. I want exposure and I want to learn. Resumes help enforce points. But at what stage does attitude and willingness make presenting a resume a waste of time due to lacking exposure in the field? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. I want to address the attitude and willingness part of that. Right? We have to acknowledge certain inalienable facts when it comes to resumes, right? And a lot of those facts are things like, at some point in time, you probably will have to deal with a recruiter, right? And at some point in time, you're probably going to have to deal with a hiring manager. And so resumes, whether you like it or not, at some point in time, have to help you get past gatekeepers. And so for those of you who are thinking about getting past gatekeepers, this is why I talk about walking that fine line when it comes to putting your experiences on resume, because sometimes resumes help you get past gatekeepers more than job titles or job responsibilities do. And so when you get past the gatekeeper, or when you go to talk to that recruiter for the first time, or go talk to that hiring manager for the first time, that's where I think your attitude and willingness need to come out, right? That's where I think you need to kind of, you know, you know, put that persona forward. Like, I'm here, I've got heart, for the person who knocked on my hustle right earlier. That's where that attitude gets to shine, is when you're sitting across from that recruiter or that hiring manager or that person on that team. That's where that gets to shine. And so I think, I think you have to play both games, right? You have to play the game that gets you past the gatekeeper, because that is unfortunately something that won't change until we as an industry grow up and help change that problem in the industry. But then when you're sitting apart from that, when you're sitting across from that person, when you're sitting across from that recruiter or sitting across from that hiring manager, that's your opportunity to show that excitement and show that attitude. And that's where I think that's your opportunity to show that you may not have experience, but God, this guy's got heart. Or this girl, right? This guy or this girl's got heart. This guy or this girl's got passion. This guy or this girl's got hustle, right? That's your opportunity to show that you have something that digs deeper than the next person who may look just like you on a resume, right? And look at it this way. If you look like somebody else on paper, right? And both of you got to the interview, then it's that attitude that's going to push you a little bit forward than the other person. And I think that's where that attitude comes into play, or at least that's my take on that attitude. Oh boy, Carmen, that's tiny. Let's pull that one over to the left. Make room on my monitor for this one a little bit here. Don't forget, for those who are wondering, we're going to go over a little bit while we do the giveaway. The giveaway is for current subscribers of the stream, for a free exam attempt at EJPT. Rudex says, question, I've been thinking about this a lot and I'm planning to apply for a cybersecurity job now. I don't have any time off at my current position other than sick time. What should I do in the situation of needing time off for an interview? I work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. I'm assuming I just cross that bridge when I get to that point. Whoever the recruiter or the hiring manager should be really, really sympathetic to doing interviews. In some of those cases, right? If you were to go say to a recruiter, like, hey, I can't take off of work to go do this interview. Is there any way that we can do it after 6 o'clock, my time, right? If the recruiter's like, no, nobody's going to do an interview at 6 o'clock, I think that may say something about a culture of an organization that maybe you don't necessarily want to go work for. Maybe their work-life balance isn't that great, right? Or they're not understanding of the fact that you still have to put food on your table and you can't take the risk of having time off to not put food on your table. And so I think when you talk about crossing that bridge when you get there, I think the hard conversation you may need to have with yourself, right, is, if that recruiter says, no, sorry, we don't do interviews after 6 p.m. because, we're just not going to ask our people to do that. Ask yourself if that's really the right environment for you, right? So I think that's probably the easiest way to answer that question. All right, we're going to make a last call. I'm going to take one more question, answer one more question. Last chance to get those entries in for the EJPT cert. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the entries then. And we're going to pick a winner. SharpX, you're the winner of the EJPT cert attempt. Congratulations. Please message Carmen Mod with your real name and your email address, and we will make sure to get that to you. Congratulations on your EJPT cert attempt. Jay Will says, Neil, thank you for all you do. Thank you for tuning in. I do truly appreciate it. Question, I'm currently a voice over IP engineer with a networking background working towards a cybersecurity position, blue team. Thank you. We need more blue team people. Glad to see you go into the blue side. Do you have a particular blue team related cert that would suggest? I have INE through my company and doing some hack the box now. Awesome. Glad to see your company paying for INE. Reach out to me. I would love to talk to you. That's awesome. Thank you so very much for that. If you have INE through your company and you're working towards blue team, there is the incident handling course, there's a threat hunter course, there's a malware analysis course, and there is a network defense course, if I recall correctly. I think those are the 3 or 4 courses that INE has. And I was just talking with them last week, and they've got some stuff that's awesome that's happening, I think, in April around cloud security. And so I think if you have access to that portfolio, I'd start down those lines. But I think that they just hired a new blue team instructor, Chris Leach, which was on the cybersecurity week this last week, who I haven't had a chance to, see any of his course content, but he seems like an awesome dude, from the conversations that I've had. So I think there's gonna be some awesome stuff coming out of him. And I heard that they've hired more blue team instructors. So I think you're gonna see a lot more current and up-to-date blue team content come out of INE. So glad to hear that your company's paying for it. That exactly is what I think we need to see more of in the industry, is company paying for things like that. So I'd say proceed down that line. So listen, here's the thing. The winner, if you won, you need to message Carmen Mod right now. You've got about 30 seconds to message Carmen Mod before I pick the next winner. Although I did close that out. So you better pick up a message Carmen Mod before we give your exam voucher away to somebody else. I have a question. Johnny Sauce says, do you have any recommendations on pursuing cyber in the Air Force and opportunities to take advantage of? If you're not already in the 1v4 career field, I think that that's your direct path into cyber. Please note, it's been 7 years since I got out of the Air Force, so I'm guessing based on my friends and my peers that are still in the Air Force. So I think 1 Bravo 4 is still the career field that, takes you towards the cyber path. When I was in, right, it was tons of cyber opportunities, right? Obviously the red side and the blue side. On the blue side, they had the weapons school, depending on if you were 1v4, like a 17 Delta, which is the officer. They had the testing, the labs and a lot of the testing stuff that's going on. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on in Security Hill down in San Antonio. So, I think with you, right, getting to 1 Bravo 4 or 17 Delta is kind of like the first step. But I think once you're in that pipeline, like where you go from there, follow your heart. I mean, one of the things I loved about the Air Force and my time in the Air Force is you'll never do the same job twice. And there's just such a great opportunity to be had there. So I think just follow your heart on that one. I think you can't go wrong. All right, last call for for SharpX to make a claim on that EJPT cert before we re-roll for a new winner. So I just started the re-roll. Yep, there's the re-roll. Get your re-rolls in. We will re-roll for the EJPT cert. So here's a second chance at life for people who want a shot at that EJPT cert. SharpX, make sure you message Carmen Mod. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on this opportunity. We're going to do this one super fast. Mark Score, how would you deal with having been on long-term sick leave? Not sure what you're talking about there with that. Other than, if you're talking about like trying to take time off because you've been on long-term sick leave, look, the time off for an interview conversation is always hard, right? And trust me, like I can remember pre-COVID trying to go to interviews, where I've had to get on a plane and fly somewhere to meet an executive team to do an interview. And you can't necessarily be like, I'm sick, and then post pictures on Instagram of you in Boston because you're interviewing with like Rapid7, right? That just doesn't happen. And then on top of that, like, hey, I got to take a day off because I got a doctor's appointment. And then you're worried about your email blowing up and you're worried about things like that. So, I think that there's a, organizations know that you have to take time off to do an interview, right? So, one of the things that I'm a huge fan of, and I say this to anybody that I mentor, right, is be honest with your boss, right? if you're looking for a job, and this is not always easy to do, right? And I know some bosses aren't always as receptive to this as others, right? So for those who are wondering, we are re-rolling. We haven't heard from the previous winner. They haven't messaged Karmamon. Remember, that's a requirement. You got to message Karmamon if you want to get this, you want to get these gifts. So, I meant, how would you put that on your resume? Oh, you're talking about taking taking extended sick leave on your resume? You know, I think that you just cover that on your screening questions, right? I wouldn't necessarily put it on your resume, but if you get to that recruiter who's like, "Hey, I see you've got a gap on there," I would just be like, "Hey, I had a personal medical thing that took me out of work for 6 months or a year." Right? There's no need to put it on paper or document it. I think you just cover that during your screening process. And I don't think again, I get back to the culture of an organization, right? I remind people, in cyber, you're in demand, right? People want you. And so if they don't want you because you took 6 months off or a year off because you had a personal medical problem, then that's a culture of an organization that you may not necessarily want to go to. So that's how I put that in perspective, right? If I got COVID and I was out for 6 months right now, and I went to go start applying for jobs coming on the other side of COVID, and I had a recruiter be like, "Well, you were out for 6 months. Why?" And I'd be like, "I got COVID and I was sick for 6 months." And they're like, "Yeah, we don't really want you because you were out of work for 6 months with COVID." I'd be like, "That's fine. I don't want to work for you. On to the next one." Right? Remember, you're in demand. You're the expert, right? Even if you're an entry-level person, you're in demand. Right. And so I would treat that with that level of kind of tenacity. Right. So last call for everybody who to get in on that EJPT cert attempt. We're going to close that after this question. Papa Keith says, "I'm doing INE PTS and try hack me after you and David's vids, 8 of them, 8 boxes so far." But I think you're saying, how do I stay motivated to engage on socials after full-time school, work, and family? It's hard. It's hard. I mean, I'm not even going to lie. I mean, you guys see me active on socials, right? This is not a flex. This is just right. I've got a full-time job. I run my own consulting company. I do the stream. I prep content for the stream. I'm out there finding people to interview for you all, right? I'm out there finding sponsors to give you guys discounts and gifts. And I show up here with high energy and high impact every single time we turn this camera on. It's hard, but it's a passion, right? It's in my gut and it's in my heart. And so I need to do these things for me, for my why, to push myself forward, right? For me, I love doing this, and I'm not done. I'm not done being the best version of myself in this industry. And so I do all of this stuff for what's in my heart. And so if you go look at my CISO or my homeless to CISO video with Joel, if you go read the Cybersecurity Truth Bombs, the 3-hour interview with Joel, we talk extensively about finding your why. My why is getting messages from you guys about how awesome, the content is. My why is getting feedback from you guys that you guys got a job because of what we talked about on stream. My why is making sure that you all are the best versions of yourself in the cybersecurity industry that you can be. That's my why. And so I read that and I immediately go, "That's awesome. I'm glad to see you putting in the work. I think that's amazing." How do you stay motivated? Find your why. And if you can't be motivated to do the socials, then that's fine. Nobody's going to fault you for it. Nobody's going to, and look, I'm not going to say, "Oh, you're not hustling." You'll never hear those words come out of me, right? What I'll say is, do what you can, because it's better than zero. You're doing PTS and you're doing try hack me. It's better than zero. Good job. High five. I'm high fiving you through the camera right now. You feel me? I'm high fiving you. Fist bump right through the camera. I'm super proud of you for it. Keep doing it. If you can't find the motivation to do everything else, then that's fine. I'll never fault you for it. I'll never say you're not doing enough. You'll never hear those words come out of my mouth, right? But for me, if I'm not doing the best, I have to dig deeper, and that's my why. And so if you can't, then don't. Only do what it is that you can do, because your mental health and your family is more important than this career field. So hopefully that helps. And with that, I'm going to close this and we are going to pick the next winner. Angry Amoeba. That is a very well-deserved winner right there. Angry Amoeba gets the EJPT cert attempt right there. Congratulations. Congratulations. Make sure you message Karma Mod. We'll keep this open just in case Angry Amoeba is too overcome with excitement that he forgets to message Carmen Mod with his name and email address. Trebs 101 says, should you take any salary if you're trying to get your foot in the door? Not necessarily. Absolutely not. Like my salary conversations, and I could do an entire stream and maybe I add that to like part 4. Maybe I do a salary conversation stream next Saturday, or maybe I bring this up with Jeff on Wednesday and we talk about salaries on Wednesday. But no, I think that those things are mutually exclusive, right? Just because you're trying to get your foot in the door does not mean that you sacrifice salary. I think they're mutually exclusive of each other, right? You should still negotiate salaries. If the job rec is an entry-level job rec and the recruiter says, well, we're only going to pay 67 to 75, and you're making 150 in accounting, you're probably not going to make 150 at an entry-level role. Should you try to negotiate 150? You can try all day long. And if that company's willing to do it, then that company's willing to do it. But I would ask yourself, and one of the things that we can talk about on stream, if we add this as a topic, is how to position yourself that you're worth 150, even though the job rec only says it's 65 to 75. Right. And understand that the difference between those numbers is the difference that business needs to get out of you for the value that you bring to the organization. And that's why I'm trying to encourage you all to put that value on your resumes and to put that value on your LinkedIn so that you get that value conveyed to an organization. For up-to-the-minute cybersecurity news, make sure you follow and subscribe to the Cyber and Security channel on Twitch and YouTube. Also, make sure you turn on those notifications so that you know when we go live.